Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is part 1 video on Angular 14 JWT access token for authentication and refresh token. So in this video series, we are going to implement an Angular application with JWT authentication, and we also use refresh token whenever the JWT token expires to renew it. Okay. So in general, JWT token is a encrypted string, but it is made up of three components like header, payload, signature. So as a UI developer, you no need to know all these things, but it is better to have an idea of how JWT token is framed. Okay. So in general, header will contain the type of algorithm and type that determines what type of token it is. Okay. And the payload contains all the claims of the authenticated user like email, username, user ID, phone number, all kind of user information can be stored in the payload. Okay. Signature. Signature is the type of encryption that has been used for creating the token. Okay. So basically, the string what we see as a JWT token is comprised of all these three ingredients. Okay. So let's create a sample Angular 14 application and try to implement the JWT authentication. Okay. Here is the Angular CLI command for creating the project. So CLI command is like ng space new space name of your project. So enter to create the project. And while creating project, it asks us whether to include the Angular routing or not. Please say yes because I'm going to use some lazy loading modules in this sample. Okay. And I'm going to choose the normal styling that is CSS. Project created successfully. Let open my project in Visual Studio Code Editor. So here is our Angular project, okay, which is 14. You can check the version in package.json file, okay. And now let's try to install the Bootstrap package into our application so that we can consume the Bootstrap component for developing a sample application. Go to Bootstrap, okay, and go to the home page first. And here you can see the command for installing the latest version of the Bootstrap package. So let me copy the command, open my terminal, okay, install the Bootstrap. So after completion of installing Bootstrap, we have to configure the Bootstrap CSS and JS reference files into the Angular JSON file. Okay, go to Angular JSON file. So here in the styles array, add the reference of the Bootstrap. Okay, same way we have to reference JS file as well in the scripts array. Okay, now let me add the Bootstrap navbar as a menu item in my application. So go to Bootstrap website, go to docs and go to the component section and go for navbar. Okay, and let me copy this navbar. And what I will do, go to app component.html where it contains the entry HTML, default HTML. So let's replace everything here. Okay, replace now. Okay, so container fluid. You can check these styles will available in Bootstrap. Okay, and navbar brand. I want an anchor tag like JwT auth demo, and it should be like my home navigation router link, and it should display like a brand. Okay, like a header, like a logo. Navbar brand class I can apply. Okay, so now let's run the application and check. So open terminal, ngserve. And you can access our sample application at localhost 4200, and you can now see nice bootstrap menu applied to our website. Okay, now what I want to do is, this is my homepage URL, right? So I want to create one simple home component, Angular component like home, that contains a simple welcome message. So my main idea is this home page, either user is authenticated or not authenticated. Any kind of user can use this page like a guest page. Okay, anyone can consume the home page. That is the ideal goal. So for that, let me create a simple component, home component. Okay, so for creating the component, ng generate component, and my component name is home. I don't want any spec files. Okay, now run this CLI command. Okay, now home component got created. In app routing, let me configure the home component as the home route. Okay, so path. Okay, that is home path component, home component. Okay, and in the home component.html, let's add some welcome message, something like welcome message. Okay, I have already prepared some bootstrap HTML only. Okay, so copying that code snippet, paste it here. If you want, pause the video and you can type enter card. Now, if I go to the website, see, I got nice welcome card, right? So this is my home page. So anyone can access this home page regardless of whether the user is authenticated or non-authenticated. Okay. Now I want to create a login form. Okay, so I don't want to create a login uh, component directly, because in real example, along with login, there are several different steps that may include with login, like registration, like this process. Okay, so what I will do, I just create one module, future module, which I want to load lazily. Inside of that future module, I want a component like login component. Okay, so first let me create a new future component or sorry, new future module or child module. Okay, so ng generate module. Okay, and auth module name. Okay. I want routing as well for my child module. Okay. So you can give flag like hyphen routing. So run it. Okay. So if I check here, I can see auth module got created with the routing module file as well. Now in this module, I want a login component. Okay. So let me create a new component that is login inside of the feature module that is auth module. Okay. So ng generate component where I want to create inside of the auth, right? So auth folder name, module folder name, and name of the component. Name of the component is login. Okay. And I don't want any spec files. I have created the login component as well. Now what I will do, I will go to, first I will go to app routing module. I just want to enable the lazy loading module level. Okay. So path contains auth, then load children. Okay. Arrow function, import auth module. Okay, we configure our module for lazy loading. Now go to auth routing module. Here we have to configure the login component route. Okay, so path like login and component like login component. Okay, now in login component HTML we have to create a simple login form, and then we have to call an API to get the authentication token, which is a JwT access token as well as the refresh token. But how we can get? Okay. For that, I have created a one mock API repository in my GitHub. Okay. So that API created with framework NestJS, which is a uh, framework that builds on Node.js, means nothing but a Node.js application. Okay. So this is my GitHub link. And if you go to my repositories, and here you can find NestJS JwT auth mock API. If you click on it, here is the documentation. I have specified everything step by step. Let's go through them. First thing is you have to clone this project because I have created the mock JwT sample node server application. Okay. After after cloning this project, you should contain the NestJS framework in your application. For that, please make sure to run this command by opening the command prompt anywhere. So this will install NestJS CLI globally into your local machine. Okay. Next, after completion of NestJS installation, go to this repository root folder and again open the terminal and run npm install. That going to pull all required packages required by this NestJS application. Okay. Once that is done, we have to start the server. So command to start the server is npm run start :dev. You need to specify same command in the terminal so that NestJS application starts running. So now it is available for using for JWT authentication. Okay. Next, here is the login endpoint. Okay, which one we have to use in our Angular application. And here is the payload, username and password. Okay, these property names exactly use this only, because server, if you change one character, server can't recognize their query parameters, right? Their payload parameters. So we cannot change these property characters. So use exactly them. And for testing, use username equal to test and password is 1234. Okay, this is the hard coded credentials that was using by this application. Okay, use this one. Once you successful, you get access token and refresh token as a response. Okay, and if you want, by default 1800 seconds to access token is active. That means 30 minutes. But we are learners. We want to test refresh token, right? We cannot wait for 30 minutes uh, to learn about the refresh token, right? So what you can do means, in this project, go inside of SRC, in the auth folder, inside of the auth.module.ts file, there is a configuration like this. Okay, JWT module registration. There you can change these seconds. Like you give like 60 s means 60 seconds, 1 minute. So token will be expired in 1 minute, so that you can test refresh token logic immediately. Okay, so refresh token endpoint is this one. Here for refresh token, you should send both expired access token and refresh token value as a input parameter. Once they are valid, this endpoint going to give the new access token and new refresh token as a response. Okay, so this is about the response token endpoint. And finally, we have to use some secure endpoint, right? I have created something like fav-movies, which is a secured endpoint. Means if you want to consume this endpoint, you should have a JWT access token as a request header, as an authorization header to the request. Then only you can get a response like this, something like movie name and the genre. Okay, so that's about the uh, my mock NestJS application. Okay, so now we are going to next we have to implement the login and we have to consume these endpoints. Okay, now we will create a small login form and we are going to consume our NestJS application login API, and we are going to receive the access token and refresh token as a response from the login API on successful authentication. Okay, so let's add a form here, simple form. Okay, container. Let me add some legend for a heading like sign in. Okay, and to add the email and username and password, to enter the username and password, I need two input fields. So go to Bootstrap and go for form section, go to overview, copy this div. Okay, I don't want this line. Okay, and duplicate this one. Okay, and label will be txt username as an to id username. Okay, type will be text. Okay, same way, txt password Okay, ID will be this one and it will be a password. Okay, and let's add a button here for form submission. Okay, like login button. Okay, btn primary. Okay, some click event. Add a method like user login. Okay, copy this name user login and add it in login component.ts. For now, let's empty method. So first, let's create a form type. Okay, like login model. So let me create a interface ng generate interface, and this interface is specific to this login component only. We use anywhere else. So what I will do, I will create inside of the auth module. So specify the folder name auth and name of my model, that is login hyphen model. Okay, create. So model is created. So login model. So properties inside of this interface will be username and password. Okay, but copy those property names from the, I have shown you, right, my NestJS documentation. So if you go to login endpoint, this is login endpoint, and it requires payload like, right, username and password. So use same property names so that form data directly sent as a payload for the HTTP call. Okay. And the next property password, which is also a string. Okay. Now inside of the login component.ts file, let me declare a login form of type login model. Okay. So initially username will be empty, password will be empty. Okay. And I am going to bind this login form to my HTML input field in the login component.html file. Right. So here I can use ng model equal to dot username. Okay. And copy this. And this will be the password. So since we are using ng model, right, we must import the forms module in the auth module. So go to auth module and import the forms module. Okay, forms module. Now see the error showing on the login HTML gone. Okay, so now we are reading and storing all our uh, form data to this, right? So in the login component, we have to invoke the API call. So to implement the login API call, we have to create the service. Okay, so this is login service and it's going to return some token information which required by entire application, right? So we should not create the service inside of the auth model or auth module. It's better to create some shared folder. Inside of it, we should create so that this service will be available at global level for entire application. Okay, so let's create the service file ng generate service, right? Service, and I want to create a folder like shared in the app folder, inside of the app folder. Inside of the shared folder, I want one more folder like auth and name of my service. I'm going to name it like auth. So the file gets created as auth.service.ts file. Okay, and I don't want any spec files. So open our auth service, control C. So auth service. So let's inject the HTTP client instance. Okay, that's going to load from import from @angular common HTTP. Okay, HTTP client. Since we are using HTTP client, right, we must import the HTTP module. So in auth module, let's import, sorry, not auth module, in the app module level, okay, root level, we have to import our HTTP client module. HTTP client module imported. Okay. Now go back to our auth service. Let's create a method like user login. Okay. And it's going to receive payload. And we know the payload type, that is login model. Okay. And this dot http dot post, mine is a login is a http post method. Okay. So copy the URL from here, and to use authentication we should run our NestJS application, right? So please clone this application and follow the steps. Since I have already contains the NestJS application in my system, I am going to start the NestJS application. For that, command is this one. So let me run my NestJS server. Okay, run it. So NestJS server is up and running. Now let's go to our Angular application, and here let's get the login, okay, which is a HTTP post method, and it should pass the payload. Okay, and we know from here documentation it's going to return access token and refresh token, right? So let's uh, create a model for this response. Okay, so for that what I can do, ng generate interface. I want to create this interface inside of shared folder and inside of auth folder. Okay, so shared auth and name of my interface, that is token-model. Okay, create it. Since it is our API response model, right? So token model, just copy the property names from here. Both will be the string types. Okay. String. Now go to our service, auth service. So here 5, and I will use map method from RxJX. Okay. Data, nothing but the response. Okay. Where tokens equal to data, just convert as our token model. Okay. Now let's save the our token data into the browser storage, browser local storage, because we have to access from the browser local storage throughout our application. If the If the user closes the browsers and come back also, application can uses the tokens. Okay. For that reason, we have to maintain them as a state. That state is nothing but browser local storage. So local storage, this is a direct method, and set item. So you have to space key value like we have to store the data. So I will give key like tokens, and I need to save this tokens object. So for that I have to stringify them. So JSON dot stringify, because it will local storage store as data as string. So my tokens model is saved as a string, and just let me return true that API call is successful. If at all any error occurred, let's do catch error, and error. You can call something like your API logging API. Okay, I'm just doing console.log, and I'm going to return false means API call failed. So off means it's an observable, it is returning expecting. So I am using off. That loads from the RxJS operator, this off. I think it gets imported. You can see here. Okay. So if API call success, we are returning true. False, we are if fails, we are returning false. Okay. So this is my service call. And here one more thing, we are storing our token data into the browser session. Okay. Now we have to consume this method into our login component.ts file. So to the constructor, let us inject the service, our auth service. Okay. Auth service. Inside of the user login, this dot auth service dot user login, and we have to pass the payload, nothing but our login form. Okay. And I am going to subscribe for the data. If the data value is true, I will show simple alert message like success, else alert like fail, login fail. Okay. So let's test and run whether we are able to successfully get token or not. Okay. So our Angular application runs at localhost 4200. Okay, I haven't created a login menu navigation, right? Let me add a login menu here. Okay, login link. For that, go to app component.html. Okay, add a new div like reflex ULs, and a class will be navbar nav. Okay, let me copy the menu styling from Bootstrap. Navbar is our navbar. So here li navbar nav, that's fine. Let me copy this one of the link, one li. Okay, and router link will be auth/login. Okay, and this will be login. Okay, now we should see login menu. Some design issue. Let's fix. Sorry, this should be inside of the our div container fluid div. Okay, I think now styling issue should fix. Okay, now I got login, right? If I click on login, See, now I got login form. Now inspect element to check the network call. Okay. And we know test user credentials. That is username is test and password is 1234. So test and password is 1234. Click on login. See, I got success alert. That means API call is login API is successful. So if you click here and if you see the payload, password is 1234, username is test. And in the preview, now here you can see access token and the refresh token, right? And if you go to application tab, and if you go to the storage section and in the local storage under the our Angular application C, tokens is stored. This is browser session. So if I close this browser also, these will be there. So next time when user opens application, so applications can read these existing tokens and check whether the tokens are valid or not. So we are successfully calling the login API with test credentials, and we got token as a response as well. Next, this token contains some user information payload like email and claims, all those things, right? We have to extract those details, and I can use like once user is successful, I will hide this login button. In this place, I am going to show the user email address, something like that, email or user profile name, something user related information I can show, right? For that, I need to extract the information from the token, right? Next, we are going to do that. Now, to decode the JWT token, we will install a library like Auth0 angular-jwt. Okay, so we need a new library, that is Auth0 angular-jwt. So this package helps us to decode the JWT access token. By the way, along with decoding JWT access token, it also provides some wonderful features for authentication. So let's check them as well. So one thing is it can decode the token, and another thing is directly with the help of token, we know whether the token is expired or not. Okay, and some of other features like token can be registered JWT module as well. What is the benefit of registering module means? So for a secured endpoints, we have to pass our JWT token as a authorization header value, right? So if you configure the JWT module, okay, that adding of JWT token to every request automatically taken care by it, okay, and it provides lot of configurations, okay, how to the token should be configured, like which domains configure, which domains JWT token must be added, and for which URL it must be excluded. Like that, you can configure. Okay, and allow domains, disallow domains, and by default, my JWT token is a barrier token. So barrier token authentication schema no need to define. But if you want to use the different type of auth scheme, then you can specify that. Okay, like that, there are a lot of configurations which we will understand when we explore them in our code. Okay, first let's install this package. Install the auth package. So after installing package, let's create the instance of the JWT helper server. Okay, like JWT helper equal to new JWT helper service. Okay, so that loads from Auth0 Angular JWT library. Okay, now using this instance, we can decode the JWT token. So now here what I will do, JWT helper dot decode token. To the decode token, we have to pass our access token value. Okay. So for now, what I will do, I will just console log the decoded data. Okay. So now let's check it. What are the properties we are going to get from the decoded token? So here is my login page, and we know the test credentials, and open the console. Okay, now click on login. It is successful, right? And now here you can see the object, like from the this is the decoded object. So token contains email, expiration, and sub is nothing but the user ID and the username. Okay. So let me create a interface that represent this decoded token object. Okay. So for that, ng generate interface. So I want this interface available throughout the application. For that, I am going to create inside of the shared auth folder. And name of my interface, I will name like user profile. Okay, now go to user profile. Let's populate the properties. Email, the string, exp expiration, number, something, sub, number. Okay, username string. Okay, now go to our auth service. Here what I will do, I will create a behavior subject. Why I am going to create, I will explain. Okay, so user profile. Okay, let's initialize with behavior subject, and its type is either user profile or a nullable value. Initially, let's pass null data. Okay, now here instead of logging to console log, where user data equal to, and convert it as user profile data. Once encryption is done, this dot user profile dot next. So for a subject, we have to pass data, means we have to use next. Okay, and pass the user data. Now we have our authenticated or decrypted user token information here, right? In this observable. Now what I want to do means I want to display login when user is not authenticated, and I want to display email ID in the place of login menu item when the user is authenticated. Okay, so before doing that, first let me go to login component. Instead of showing alert messages, okay, for failure, just log console, okay, failed. And if the authentication is successful, let's land on home page. Okay. For that we need a service like router service that loads from the Angular router. Okay. So if it is login is good, then this dot router dot navigate to home page. Okay. Now let's focus on menu item displaying based on the authenticated user. Okay. Now go to app component.html file. So here is the our auth login data, right? So in app component, let's try to read the user information. App component.ts file. Okay. Let me create a variable like user profile, which is of type user profile or nullable. Okay. So now in the constructor, let's inject our auth service. So auth service. Okay. And implements ng on init method. On init method. Okay. Now instead of the ng on init, let's try to listen for the auth service user profile data. Okay. So subscribe for data. Okay. And assign it to our user profile equal to data. Okay. And it should be a nullable. Now using this variable information, let's toggle the menu items. So how to do that? So to display this login item, I can apply ng if, okay, like, so what is the variable? User profile, right? So user profile, okay, I'm checking null values, okay. So that means if it is null, it will return 0, okay. Equal to 0. That means sub means I have mentioned, right? It is an authenticated user ID. If it is 0 means user is not authenticated yet. So in that case, it will be 0. In that case, we are going to show the username. Sorry, login menu item. If at all, okay, just duplicate this one. And instead of equal to 0, let's say greater than 0. That means user authenticated. At that time, there is no navigation here, simply href equal to hash. And here I want to display the email address, user email address. User profile dot email. Okay. Now let's test it. Okay. If I reload, I can see login page. Okay. Enter the test credentials. See, I am navigated to home page, and here you can see test@test.com, which is my email, means user is successfully authenticated. So this is how we can decode the JWT token using the library like Auth0 JWT Angular. Okay. Next, we are going to consume a secured endpoint. Okay. That is nothing but a here is our endpoint, secured endpoint. So this endpoint for to consume, we need to pass the JWT access token as a authorization header value. Okay. Next, we try to implement this. Now, within my NestJS application, I have created one endpoint like favorite movies endpoint, and response looks like this. Okay, so to consume this favorite movies endpoint, we have to pass our JWT access token as a authorization header to the API value. Okay, so first let's create a small module like movies. Inside of it, we will create a component like favorite movie. So inside of that component, we are going to consume this endpoint. Okay. So let's create ng generate module, and name of the module is movies. I need routing as well, so I can add flag like ---- routing. Okay. Now I have movies module. Okay. So let's configure the lazy load routing in the app routing module. Okay, go to app routing module. Here, let's configure the lazy load module. Okay, so let me give a path like movies and load children like import movies movie module. Now let's create a component inside of the movies module. So the component is like fav-movie component. Okay, favorite movie component. ng generate component inside of movies module, right? So specify the folder path movies and name of the component. Name of the component is fav-movies. I don't want any test files, so skip test. Okay, now the component is created. Now let's create our API response model. So this is the API response model. Let's create a model for it. Okay, so ng generate interface. Okay, movies. Inside of the movies folder, I want. So this is name of my interface response model name. Go to the interface. Let's add these properties. ID will be a number, name will be a string, genre will be string. Okay. Now let's create a service to invoke the API call. ng generate service inside of the movies folder. My service name will be movies. Okay. So file will get created like movies.service.ts file. Okay, and skip the test files. Okay, if I go to my movies module, I have favorite movies component, favorite movie.ts, which is a response type, and movie service file. Okay, now let's inject the HTTP client instance. Okay, let's add the logic for invoking the API call. Get fav-movies, return this dot HTTP. So this is a get method, and I am going to receive array of fav-movie type. Okay, and here we need to pass our API call. Okay, so service is ready. Now let's configure our favorite movie component in movies routing module. So go to movies routing module. Okay, here path will like fav-movies. Okay, and component will be the fav component. Now we have to consume the our service into our favorite movie component, right? So go to favorite movie component.ts file and inject our movie service. Okay, and now let's add a variable like fav-movies. Okay, initially empty array, and in the lifecycle method, let's invoke the movie service. Okay, subscribe. So data. So this dot fav-movies equal to data. Okay, now I need to bind this fav-movies to my HTML. So go to movie component dot HTML file. Okay, so let me use some Bootstrap cards for binding. So go to Bootstrap website. So go to cards and scroll down. Let me copy this side by side. Okay, and paste it here. Since I am going to loop, let's remove the duplicate columns. Let's loop it. ng for let fav of. So what is the variable? Fav-movies. Okay, and I don't need any image tag. Okay, and here title will be our name of the movies, fav dot name. Okay, here in the paragraph, let's bind the genre. Okay, now let's add a favorite movie menu item. So go to app component.html. So go to Bootstrap navbar component. So from here, let's copy this div tag and add it here and close the div tag. Okay, and the next ul and li, close the ul tag. Okay, and next let's add this navbar expand lg class. Okay, Now I want to display this movie item when the user is authenticated. So I can copy this if condition, add it here, and this will be movies. Okay, and I can add a router link like slash movies slash fav-movies. Okay, let me check fav routing, movie routing, fav moves. Okay, now let's test. Once we log in, then we navigate to movies menu item. So here is our sample. Click on login, enter our test credentials. We are successfully logged in and we can see the movies menu item. If I click on it, now I am on movies, but API call not happening. So here API call 401 unauthorized. That means user is not authorized. Okay. So that means for request we have to send the API call. If I click again, you can see here in the networks. To this request header we have to add authorization header, and to that authorization we have to pass our JWT token as a value. Okay, one way we can do is manually adding authorization header at the every request, or else you can write the interceptors. Okay, but since we are using JWT Angular library, if with that help we can utilize the automatic adding of authorization header. Means we no need to write the code to add the authorization headers. Okay, so to do that, first go to auth service. I have to write a method. That method should return the access token as an output. Okay, so auth service. This is our auth service, right? So here let me write one method like get access token. Okay, so where local storage, always try to get from local storage or token data. Okay, local storage dot get item, and what is our key tokens, right? So use that one. Okay, if local storage data exists, then we have to implement some logic, or else we are going to return empty string, means no token is available. Okay, if local storage token exists, then where token, if we will parse it. Okay, json dot parse local storage, and we convert them as token model. Okay, now what I will do, let's check whether the existing token valid, means it is expired or not. So is token expired? Okay, to check that, we know we can use the JWT helper service. Okay, this dot JWT helper dot is token expired. To this token we have to pass our access token. So token dot access token. Okay, so if it is expired, this value will be true. Okay, so in that case, if it is expired, is token expired, then what I want to do means I want to remove the data from the behavior subject, that is user profile. Okay, this dot user profile dot next, I'm going to pass null value, means token expired. So I am emptying the data and return the empty string, means no token, active token available. Okay, if at all token is not expired, means token is active. In that case, where user info equal to this dot JWT helper dot decode token, just a decoding token. Okay, token dot access token, and that type will be user profile type. Okay. Now this dot user profile observable will pass new user info, decoded user info, and finally return the token as a output. Okay, access token returning as an output. Okay, this is our private method. So this method I am going to use in JWT module that loads from the @auth0 / angular JWT library. Okay, so now what we will do, let's go to uh, JWT app module. Okay, here let's import the JWT module. Okay, so JWT module that loads from the auth0 angular-jwt library. Okay, for root, here I am going to add some configurations like JWT provider options. Okay, so in that provide property, JWT options that loads from the library. Next, use factory. So I need to pass a factory method here. Okay. So to do that, here let me create a function. That function will be used as a factory method. Okay. Function JWT options factory. Okay. And to this method, we have to pass our auth service because we just created one method, right? That method we are used inside this. Okay. Auth service, auth service. Okay. Now here we need to return a object literal just like configuration. So first one will be token getter. Okay. So this property will take a arrow function. That arrow function must return the access token as output. So add arrow function, and we know our auth service. We have a method to return the token, that is get access token. We will return it from this arrow function. Okay. So to use it here, we have created this get access token method. Okay. So next thing, configurations, like we can add few more configuration. So if you want to check all these configurations, go to auth 0 JWT Angular. Okay. Here there will be a nice documentation how to use the factory or without using factory method, everything. See, like these configurations you can check. Here it is directly using config. There is no factory, but we use factory method approach. So that factory method approach also down here it will explain how to use. So where is that factory method? See, we are using this factory method approach. Okay. So here allowed domains means to which domains we want to add this token. Okay. So what is our domain? API domain. Our API domain is nothing but localhost 3000. Okay, just copy this. No need to copy HTTP colon. If you copy, it won't recognize. So don't add HTTP, all those things. Only host name here we have to pass. Okay, in the quotations. And we can also specify like other configurations like disallowed routes. To which routes? No need to add the token like login. All those things we no need to add our access token, right, by default. So for them, I can exclude them. So what are the endpoints I don't want for my login endpoint? as well as my refresh token endpoint also. So I'm just excluding, no need to add authorization header for these routes. Okay, like that, lot of other configurations you can check in the documentation and add here. Okay, now let's use this JWT option factory here. Okay, and since this method has input parameter or auth service, right? That should be registered in the dependencies here. Deps means dependencies. Okay, so pass here our auth service. Okay, so why we did all these configurations means now for every request to this domain, excluding these URLs, automatically access token will be added as a authorization header. Let's test it. You can see how it is automatically adds. Let's now log in again. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now clear all network calls. Go to movies. See, now I am getting some data rendering. Movies, favorite movies. Okay. If I check network call, now it is 200. Previously 401 unauthorized. And if you see the request header, see authorization, barrier space, our access token automatically added. We did nothing. Okay. So with the help of this JWT module from the Auth0 angular-jwt automatically handles the adding of access token. Okay, so that is one of the benefit for using this library. So this library, what are benefit till now we have seen, like decoding and checking for access token expired or not, and automatic adding of authorization header value to the request. You can see automatically to the request in the request headers, you can see authorization value added. Okay. Otherwise, if you don't do this, we have to manually add for every call, or we have to create a interceptor where which executed before going request going to the servers. There we have to write our own logic for adding the authorization header. Okay, so this is all about how to consume the secured endpoint. Okay, next we are going to check how to invoke the refresh token endpoint on JWT token expires. So we are going to implement a one interceptor for that. Okay, JWT module cannot handle it. Okay, directly. So we have to create an interceptor, and in that interceptor, if the token expires, we need to call the refresh token API. Now on JWT token expires, we have to invoke the our refresh token API, right? So let's first invoke the or implement the API call in our auth service. Okay, go to auth service. Okay, here let's create one new method for invoking the refresh token API. Okay, refresh token. Okay, this is my API call. Just go to our GitHub link of NestJS, so you can find the URL and the payload. So to this payload, my intention is I have to send expired access token and refresh token. Okay, some cases they won't send expired access token, they just send refresh token. Okay, depends upon how your server API works. Okay, so that means I should have a payload which is of type my token model. Okay, so now return this dot http dot. So this will be a post method and it's going to return new access token and refresh token. So same model. Okay, and copy the API call. and second parameter will be the payload. Okay, this is our API call logic. Now to test our sample, let's change the expiration token in the server project. So I'm going to my NestJS application. Okay, and you have to go to the inside of the src auth folder. You have to go to the auth-module.ts. Here you can see sign in options and expires in 1800 seconds. That means 30 minutes. So what I will do, I will change it to 60 seconds, means 1 minute. So within 1 minute, my JWT access token expire, so that I can test easily, right? Now what I will do, just stop the server, okay, and restart it again. Okay, server is up. Now go to our Angular website. Okay, try to log in without test credentials. Okay, and also open the developer tools for network calls observation. We click on login. Now go to movies. Okay, and now let's go to home page again. Now wait for 1 minute and click on movies menu item. Okay, so I think 1 minute completed. Let's click on movies menu item. Okay, no content is appearing, and if you see here, it is 401 unauthorized. But here, if you observe, our login credentials are gone, right? So what I will do, one small correction. Let me do in Auth service. In previous video, we have created get access token, right? Okay. So here we are returning the access token, right? So here there is a line of code like we are checking for token. Best suggestion is don't add this logic like checking the expiration and emptying the profile. Okay, because we want to use the refresh token benefit, right? See, once the token expired, automatically all login information is gone. So that logic is not ideal here. So just remove that logic. Okay. Now let's. So anyway, our token will be stay in our network application itself, local storage session here, right? And we have refresh token. So now we have to utilize the benefit of the refresh token. Okay, obviously we must get a new access token and refresh token based on the re refresh token that is available to us. Okay, so now the thing is uh, how to do that. Okay, so we know JWT token is adding as a authorization header by the JWT module, right? We have discussed previously JWT module, but invocation of refresh token it cannot handle. So we have to handle it. That means to handle the uh, to handle the invocation of refresh token API, we must create a interceptor. Okay, so let me create a interceptor. Ng generate, and this interceptor is like global, right? So I want to create it in the store, and let me create it like a class. So in the shared folder, in the auth folder, I want to create my interceptor like auth token interceptor. Okay, I don't want any test files. So let me add skip test. Okay, now successfully interceptor is created. So let me go to my interceptor, auth interceptor. Okay, currently it is a simple plain class, right? It should be an injectable service. So decorated with injectable. Okay, and implement HTTP interceptor. okay, and it should implement a method, okay. We have to implement this intercept method, okay. So what we can do, first let's try to fetch the token data from the uh, local storage, okay. So constant local storage token equal to local storage dot get item, and I saved with a key like token. Okay, if you have any doubt, you can check in auth service where so tokens. Okay, first we are trying to fetch the local storage tokens. Okay, and let's create a variable like token model. Sorry, token model. Okay, and check whether the local storage contains tokens or not. Okay, so if we have tokens in our browser local storage, then convert them into that string. We have to pass it into our JSON token model type. Okay, so local storage token as token model. Okay, now here we have to check for the token is expired or not. Okay, is token active? Okay, means not expired. Okay, or else let's check directly, is token expired? Okay, true means expired. Okay, now we can use JWT helper, right? Okay. Now here I can inject JWT service directly here. Okay, but if you recall auth service, I haven't injected the JWT helper service. I directly initialized. That is because this auth service, okay, this auth service using as a dependency in this auth service, sorry, in this JWT module. So if I inject, okay, instead of declaring here, if I inject private JWT helper equal to JWT service, if I do like this in auth service, then it's going to throw circular reference. Okay, since because we are injecting our auth service into JWT module here, and the JWT helper service which is inside of JWT module, we are again injecting back to our auth service. That will create circular reference. That is the reason I haven't injected it into the constructor. Okay, okay. But here there won't be any circular reference issue. So that's why I can inject here. If you don't want to inject, also not a problem. You can create object directly like this. Okay. But when we have opportunity to inject something, okay, that means object can be created very efficiently than creating manually by us. Okay, here Angular itself injects. So whenever you have a chance to inject, please do same way. Private JWT helper and JWT helper service. Now I can use this to check this dot JWT helper dot is token expired. To this token expired, we have to pass our access token. Okay. So is token expired false means token is still active or not expired. Okay. So if is token not expired, then we no need to do nothing. Means token is active. We should not change anything within the request. At the time, what we can do, we simply allow the natural request flow. Okay, we won't change anything of the request flow. Like this, you can return. Okay. Next, else. Else means token expired. In that case, what we have to do? Let's inject the our auth service private auth service okay. Here just call our refresh token endpoint, refresh token, okay. And we know payload, expired access token and refresh token I need to pass it. I have the token model data, so I can directly pass it as a payload, right? But pipe and use switch map, okay. And switch map receives new response from our refresh token endpoint, okay. So here now what I will do, let's store this new token response back to our browser local storage, okay. So this switch map will receive the response from the refresh token endpoint, and the new data must be stored back to our local storage. So key will be tokens, and we have to stringify it, JSON object, JSON.stringify, and pass our new tokens data. So here we saved it back to our local storage, latest data. Now we have to update our user information to our auth service user profile observable, so that it will again refreshes the object. So we have to refresh this behavioral subject here as well, okay. So where user info equal to this dot JWT helper dot decode token, okay. New tokens dot access token and convert it as token model, or not token model, user profile model. Now this dot auth service dot and user profile observable dot next and pass our user info. Now after refresh token, when will this endpoint invokes? For suppose if the movie API requested, this interceptor get executed, and this interceptor it will check for the token. If token is not expired, it will proceed normally request. If token expires, the movies request will be halted, okay, for some time halted, and refresh token new API call triggering here. So once new API refresh token, which is a new API call successful, we will get the new access token, refresh token, and we again setting them back to our browser storage and updating the user profile info. Now again, I need to resume back my movies API call. Actually, my main API call is movies API call, which is halted for some due to the expiration of token. Now I have to resume back my movie API call. So for that, what we can do, if I trigger now from this here the movie API call, JWT module cannot automatically, sorry, in the app module we have JWT, and we know that the JWT module automatically adds the authorization header to every request, right? But the request reinitiated from our auth token interceptor will not add authorization header. So in that case, we have to manually add the authorization header before it's going to hit the server. So here, like transform request means like new request. So this request contains originally our movies API request. So here what I can do, req dot clone, okay, header rec.headers dot set. Okay, here we are manually setting key. The name is nothing but authorization header, authorization header. Okay, and token. Token, we know JWT barrier token. First, it should have barrier. Okay, and next we should have our token. So here it is a dynamic string, right? Use backticks, not double quotes. Backtick. Okay. Now here we have new tokens dot our access token. Okay. So now for movies request, we are manually adding the request header. This is one special case within the interceptor. We must add authorization header because JWT module won't intercept it any further. Okay. Now return next dot handle and pass this newly created request. Okay. Transform request. Okay. That is how we have to do. For suppose if some exception occurred from the API, refresh token API, then we have to catch the error. Okay. We have to catch the error and we can return throw error. Okay. Directly to the request initiated. Okay. So did I added within the switch map? I think it should not be inside of the switch map. It should be inside of the pipe. Yeah. Okay. And it should be ended with space. So here we need to do something like so this catch error when will occurs whenever our refresh token fails, means when the user submitted some invalid refresh token or even refresh token must be expired. Okay, at that case we should remove local storage dot remove the tokens from the browser, and also we must set this authorization server to null value. Means we have to make our application logout because refresh token also invalid token, and then we must navigate to home page. For that, let's inject the service private router service. Okay. So here this dot router dot navigate to home page. Okay. So this is how our uh, interceptor look like, but here all the code not returning the data. Okay. So here we have to do one more conditional check. This flow should not execute for few API calls like login as well as refresh token, should not go through all these token checking. So for that we have to initially avoid them. If request dot URL dot index of, okay, request API URL. If it is login API. If it is a login API, a checking URL contains login as well as or either login or request dot URL dot index of our auth token URL. So let's copy this string and check for it. Okay. In these two cases, I don't want to execute all this code. So at that time, I simply return here. Especially, we should check refresh token. If you don't do this, it will go for infinite loop because refresh token always tries to fetches the new access token continuously. Okay, so this condition should be added. And finally, our code must execute within this logic. If it crosses this logic, means there is something another error at that time, you can simply return error, invalid request. Okay, now all our code returning something. So let's go through the interceptor again. If it is a login or refresh token, we won't disturb the request flow. If any other call like secured endpoints like movies, first we will check for local storage and fetches the okay, and we check whether token is expired. If the token is expired means not active, then also we won't disturb the request flow. If it is expired, then we invoke the refresh token API. Once we got new token response, we again redo our normal login flow like storing the tokens again back to browser storage and updating the user profile object. And now, and finally, the actual request, okay, something like secured, which is stopped for some time due to expiration of token, that should be reinvoked. Here we are this request contains that object. Okay. So we are reinvoking our API call and it will go for normal call. Since we are manually reinvoking JwT module don't have any control over it. It won't add authorization automatically. Okay. If the logic execute in this flow, JwT don't module don't add the authorization header. That is why we are manually adding. Okay. We should add this interceptor into our service register into our service provider, then it gets activated. Okay, so go to app module. So here in the provider, so provider name is http underscore interceptor. Okay, and use class, we have to pass our auth token interceptor. Okay, and multi true. Okay, now we have registered our interceptor. And here small correction. I haven't checking the index length. Okay. Okay. Now let's test again our JWT refresh token, how it gets invoked. Okay. Login with test credentials. Okay. Wait for 1 minute so that token gets expired. So you can see refresh token API invokes, then again our movies API call gets invoked. Okay. I think 1 minute completed. Let's click on movies menu item. We are getting data now. Previously we got 401 unauthorized. If you check the network calls, see, instead of favorite movie calls, refresh token API is invoked. Why it is invoked? Because in the interceptor we are checking for the token expiration. If the token expire, refresh token gets invoked. Right here, what we are doing, we are in this else part in the return, we are invoking the token. But how? Again, after immediate call of favorite movies, how it is get invoked? Because actually favorite movie is the original request that is halted for some time due to expiration of token. So that is halted, and in meanwhile refresh token is invoked. So we know if the new refresh token API we got, then what we are doing in the logic, we are again at the end, we are re-invoking the our original request, nothing but here in our case favorite movie. So that is success since new refresh token access token are available. Okay, so that is how we have to handle whenever the token expires while consuming the secured endpoints. Okay, next. we are going to implement the routing guards. Why? Because if I try to go for login page, in spite of I am uh, logging, means in spite of I am having a token in my browser storage, still I am able to accessing the login page, which is not correct one. So what we will do, we were going to implement the guards, routing guards, okay, to avoid the only if user is already authenticated, we should restrict him accessing the login page. Same way, if user is not authenticated, we should restrict him accessing the secured pages. Okay, next we are going to implement that. So to protect the routes, like login page cannot be accessed once user is logged in, and vice versa. When user is not logged in, cannot access the secured pages like favorite movies. Okay. So to do that, we are going to implement auth guards. Okay. Okay. So those are like can activate routing guards, which protect the routes based on the user permissions. Okay. So let's create a auth guard in shared folder. Okay. Ng generate class shared slash auth folder. Now name of our guard auth guard. Okay. I don't want any test files. So our guard file is created. Let's go over there. Okay, it should be a injectable service. Decorate with @injectable, and it should implement can active. Okay, which is a routing guard implementation, and implement the method. Okay, it should implement can active route. Okay, the first thing, this guard auth guard should be registered on every route. Okay, so with this auth guard, there are two benefits for us. One is restricting the routes from the user. Another thing is whenever user refreshes the page, right? So at that time, the user data like user profile, all the information will be lost. But user authentication token and everything available in the browser storage. So what we will do means we are going to fetch them. Okay. If they are empty, we are going to check local browser storage, and then we are populate again. If the storage contain access token, we again populate our user profile so that the problem like losing of authenticated user data once the page is refreshed is fixed. Okay. So here first let's check for user authenticated information. To do that, let's inject our auth service, private auth service. Okay. Now here I can try to fetch for user profile data. Okay. This dot auth service dot user profile, which is a behavior subject. To get the data, we can use method like get value. Okay. So this user profile either will return null value or user profile data. Okay. If user profile is empty, okay, no data. Maybe that is due to either two reasons. User is not logged in really, or user logged in but page is reloaded. At the time user profile gets emptied. So in that case, what we have to do means fetch the data from local storage, okay, or tokens data. where tokens, since this tokens string, since it is a string, right? Token string, and where, and check whether the data is coming from browser local storage. Okay, if that is coming, then we are convert it as our token model. So to do that, local storage dot, sorry, not local storage, JSON dot parse token string as token model. Okay, and now let's populate again our user profile. Okay, so we have to decrypt our token data. For that, let's inject JWT helper service, private JWT helper, JWT helper service. Okay, so where user info JWT helper dot decode token and pass our access token, token dot access token. Okay, and this will be the user profile type. Now let pass our data to this dot auth service dot user profile dot next. Okay, so user info. Okay, so what will happen? All this logic, whenever user is authenticated and refresh page, we again populating the data into our user profile object so that I can see user information like email, everything like menu items, all are dependent on user profile, right? They also get populated and they work. If the user reloaded the page also, authenticator state will be maintained. Okay. Till now we have solved that problem. Now we have to look into restricting the user from accessing certain pages. Okay. So to do that, for every route we have to define like user profile rules. Okay. So go to app routing module. Here I don't want any uh, rule for the home page, home component. Okay. So, but I want for auth routing module, go to auth routing module. Here I can specify. See, this implementation purely your business. You don't want to do like this hard-coded way, then from your API you need to get the roles. Okay, like access, read, write, like that roles you need to get. For that you need to invoke another kind of API. Okay, so based on that result you have to do. For this demo I simply statically maintaining the user role directly here. Okay, so here routes you can assign additional data. Okay, that is like using the data property. So to this data property you can give any kind of property. It will take object, right? You can define any kind of property. So this property value you can read in the route guard. So I will name property like required auth. Okay, this is my custom property. So for this no need to have the authentication, right? Because it is a login component. So I specify like false. So copy this again and go to movie routing module. Here favorite movie should be accessed by only authenticated users, right? So here paste the data property and here change required auth to true. Okay. Home page we no need because user is authenticated, non-authenticated should have the ability to access the home page. So I didn't specify any data property over there. Okay. So now I can use this route data value in the auth guard. So go to auth guard. Okay. Now we can write conditions like if profile, okay, dot sub. Okay, I will check for null checking because there might be case when user is not authenticated, then sub will be empty. So here, what I am checking, sub greater than 0 means user is authenticated because sub contains user login ID. Okay, if it is greater than 0, okay, and next what I can check means if route dot, so this route value coming from this input method input property activated route snapshot. Okay, route dot data. Okay, so this going to give the control over the data property we added at our routings, right? It will get control over this. So I can fetch for this property name. So where is my auth guard? So here I am checking because some components don't have required auth, right? So first check whether the properties exist or not. Okay, next check for the value of the property. Okay, so copy this entire thing and check. Here I will check like false. So what does that mean? User is authenticated, but user trying to access the profile that should not be accessed after login, like login page, right? So at that time, what I will do, I simply navigate user back to home page. For that, we need a router service, private router service. Okay. So this dot router dot navigate home page. Okay. And return false. So this auth expect some boolean type. So if it is returning false, it stops further execution of the request. Okay. For suppose if user is authenticated and trying to access the login page again, this logic executed and it's since it is returning false, it won't further allowed him to access the login page. Okay. Same way else means if user is not authenticated, copy this entire if, just we need to contradict and true. Okay, that means user is not authenticated but trying to access a route that requires authentication. At that time also we just navigate and return false. Okay, and here we need to specify true. That means everything is good. User is not accessing any invalid route. So simply return true here. Okay. So that is our route auth guard. So here auth guard fixing two of our problems. One is on page loading, maintaining the user state back. That is one solution it is doing. Okay, this logic. And next solution, it is restricting the user based on their access for accessing the pages. Okay. And now we have to register this auth guard at our every route. Okay, for that go to first app module, sorry, app routing module. Here I can activate an array because it can accept 10 number of auth guards. Okay, routing guards, auth guard. Okay, and here for home component, it is a guest, but still we are registering. Why we are registering? Here it is not about accessing the page. Here we want to solve the problem when page refreshed. If the user on home page and refreshed, then you should get the authenticated information, right? For that reason, I am registering auth guard. Okay, same way. Now register in auth routing module, auth route auth guard. Okay, same way movie routing module connect. Okay, auth guard. Okay, and finally register. This is a service, right? Finally register in our app module. Okay, app module, and inside of the providers I can specify auth guard. Okay, and before testing, here is small correction. So user profile variable assign the user info again. Okay, I forgot to do that. Okay, now here is small correction. We are checking 2 times, so it won't cause any issue. Just remove this first condition, because if this value directly returning true or false, right, at that case our checking will get uh, conflict. So just remove that condition. Okay, so now our code is good. Let's try to check in our Angular application. So here you can see test@test.com is available. Okay, for suppose if now I try to access the login page, I should I should navigate back to home page. See, I am trying to access the login page. See, redirect back to home page. So that is because once the user is logged in, he cannot access the login page again. Same way, what I will do, let's remove token from the storage. Okay, and from the browser storage. Now refresh the page. Now user is not authenticated. Now if I try to access the favorite movies page, which is can be accessed only by the authenticated users. So now currently I am not an authenticated user, right? So if I try to access now also I will get redirect back to landing page. Let's test it. See, I'm redirect back to landing page. So that's how using guards we can protect our pages. So that is the end of Angular JwT authentication. Okay, in the version 14. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos.